You totally changed the course of his life.
And that makes me feel good. I think it's more important than being in Guinness. Getting in Guinness gets me booked, but changing people's lives is what makes me feel like I'm doing something.
Welcome to CreateUp with Will Ennis. That's me. This is a podcast on leveling up both creatively and in life. Who is the fastest speed reader in the world? Ask Google this question, and the name that pops up, Howard Stephen Berg, at 25,000 words a minute. He is the fastest speed reader on planet Earth, according to the Guinness Book of World Records. 25,000 words a minute, or about 80 pages a minute. Shocking to mere mortals like myself who read about 80 pages a month. But Howard's life isn't about trying to impress anyone. It's about expressing how anyone can increase their reading speed and comprehension and ability to remember what they're reading. Howard Berg is a man on a mission. He's teaching you how to learn better. His site is www.berglearning.com. And I say it a lot through this episode because it's really powerful stuff. You can learn how to learn, like better. And we only spoke for an hour, but he actually taught me a technique to remember number sequences that I will use for the rest of my life. Full stop. This is true. After learning this technique, I've asked all my family, all my friends, I say, what was your childhood phone number? Tell it to me once. I will repeat it back to you in any length of time that you want. So I will repeat your number back to you in a week. I'll tell you your phone number back to you in a month. And I've only heard it once and I didn't write it down. And this is all from what Howard taught me. And it's just one of the things that Howard knows how to do and knows how to show you how you can do it as well. And just the applications of that are so profound. So I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Howard Berg. Howard Berg, thank you so much for being on the show today, man. It's truly an honor.
Thank you for having me. I'm going to put my headset on so you don't get any feedback. I see you have earbuds. So some of the podcasts I've done do and some don't. But when they do, I try to match the interviewer.
Yeah. I prefer it. It keeps me kind of, when I put in my headphones, it kind of gets me like a tunnel focus. Though I don't think you would have much problem with tunnel focus because you are the world's fastest reader, which is the first introduction to you, though you've done a lot and you have a lot of different areas of expertise. But yeah, I was curious about how you became the world's fastest reader, 80 pages a minute.
Well, the short answer is I read faster than everyone else, but that's probably not the answer you're looking for.
No, so that's perfect. That's perfect. You stop right there.
It's like, how did you get to be the world's best home run hitter? I hit more than anyone else. Well, I'll tell you the backstory. I grew up in Brooklyn, in a not so great part of Brooklyn, a lot of gangs, very violent. I found the safest place in my neighborhood was the library because gang kids would rather be dead than caught with a book in a library. So I read a lot when I was very young, and I had college reading when I was 11. That's what I did. And then when I went to college, I was 17. I went to the State University of New York, Binghamton, to major in biology. Well, in the second term of my junior year, I got interested in the brain. Learning and how the brain works. And I said to the dean, I want to do 2 majors. And he looked at me and said, you're a second term junior. You haven't had one psych course. You have 1 year left. You have to do the 4-year program in 1 year and finish bio at the same time. And I had 3 jobs. I was working 18 hours a week.
Jeez.
He said you'd have to take 6 science courses with 2 4-hour labs. And each lab report took 16 hours on a slide rule. So it's 40 hours of lab, 18 hours of work, and 18 credits of science. And he said, you're not smart enough. That's when I realized they never taught me learning in school. They tell you what to learn, why to learn. When you don't learn, but not why you hear a song on the radio once. You know it your whole life. Then you try to learn the 7 habits of highly effective people, and the next day you don't know any habits. There's got to be a way to learn things you need the way you learn songs. So it turns out there was. I got up to 80 pages a minute. I did the program in 1 year, the psych program. I took the GRE, which is graduate school SATs in biology. So the review, I read 48 books in 3 nights, like biochemistry, physiology, genetics. And I got 3 questions wrong. So I was in the 99th percentile. I got an 800. Then I was like, is it me or the system? There's a big difference between you can do it or you can teach it. That's not everyone can teach what they do. So I took kids 11 to 15, taught them how to do it. They did a 30-chapter book in lifelong developmental psych, a sophomore college course. They were 11 to 15 in a week. And then they took the AP test, and 15 out of 18 passed the full credit in a week. So I said, okay, now it's more important. It's not that I can do it. I can teach people how it's done. And that's kind of what we'll be doing today. I'll teach people how it's done so they can be more creative, do more great things, make the world a better place.
That's really exciting to hear, because when you hear about someone who's can read the way you can, sometimes you think, oh, it just must be their IQ. And I mean, I would assume you are already highly intelligent to begin with.
165. It's 165. But I've learned it doesn't mean anything. I mean, people have 10 degrees and they can't make a living. So IQ itself isn't really the big deal. I think what's important is how you use your creative abilities. You could be average and do great things. Look at Paul McCartney. Failure at school, brilliant musician. Would someone call him dumb? No. The problem with our education system is we think you have to know everything. No, you have to be good at something. So if you can make $1 billion as a musician, then you found just something.
Yeah.
And the fact that you weren't good at physics or calculus, who cares? You're the best musician on earth. So that's really what we should be looking at more. What makes you smart instead of are you smart? And many talented people in the arts weren't scholastically gifted necessarily. They didn't do well in math, let's say, or languages, but they're brilliant at their skill. So are they intelligent? Absolutely. But it's a different intelligence. And we need to stop thinking we're not smart because we weren't good at everything. Because I'll tell you, people like Bill Gates hire people who finished college, and he's the one who did and made all the money. So it isn't necessarily having the degree that makes you success. How many PhDs are billionaires? I'm going to tell you right now, it's less than 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
So doesn't mean they're not good at what they do.
Mm-hmm. They're
not making any money. That's the difference.
But it is cool to know that although you have a high IQ, that's way higher than average, from your experience in teaching others, that this is something that can become commonplace if people apply what you're teaching.
Absolutely. And like I had a student, is Justin Brumman, 11-year-old C student, not a genius, normal kid. The first thing he did in my school is taught him how to learn, which is not taught. How do you analyze when you don't understand? How do you remember? How do you stay calm during a test? So by the time he was 15, he finished high school. He got his 2-year degree at 17, bachelor's at 19, master's in English at 21, became a college professor at 22. So at 11 years old, he's a C student. At 22, he's a college professor. What changed? He learned how to learn.
Yep.
That was it. That's what was missing.
You totally changed the course of his life.
And that makes me feel good. I think it's more important than being in Guinness. Getting in Guinness gets me booked. But changing people's lives is what makes me feel like I'm doing something of some value to the world. And I think that's far more important than me being the best. I'd rather see you read 2, 3, 4 times faster and excel at what you do than me being the fastest in the world. Because one person can't change the world, but hundreds of thousands of people learning how to do this can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's that old adage, teach a man to fish, he can eat for a lifetime. And, as cliche as that is, it's so true. And it's so important to be thinking about how to give back and how to help others continue to give to others. If you were going to teach someone where would you start? What would be the first thing you would focus on?
How do you read faster and how do you understand better? Because they're not the same thing. Reading isn't learning. If it was, everyone reading a book would get an A. We know that isn't happening. Most people think learning is how many hours they study or how many pages they read. If you ask someone, did you study? Yeah, I read 5 hours. I read 400 pages. So what? I did a graduate course, educational psych, in 7 hours. I got a B plus in 50 minutes on a 6-hour test. Did it matter how many hours I read? Did it matter how many pages I looked at? I got a B plus. It's really, what do you know and can you use it when you need it? So let's start with how do you read faster, and then I'll show you how to learn smarter.
Sure.
Reading faster. When you're done with this podcast, pick a book you've read, preferably a nonfiction book, more structure, and read for a minute, normal. Do nothing special, just read, see how far you get with a timer for a minute, and then mark off with a pencil where you finish. So you've measured how far you read now. Now the magic. Go to the second chapter. Take your hand. Go across one line at a time, eyes following your hand as fast as you could comprehend. So as long as you know what you're reading, go quicker and quicker and quicker till you don't. And that's when it got too fast, because you understand the book. So slow down just enough so that your comprehension comes back. And for 5 minutes, go as fast as you could comprehend. No faster, no slower. Then go back to the first chapter where you tested yourself. Time yourself for a minute with your hand going as fast as you could comprehend. And that little mark you put, you'll pass it by 20 to 40% doing that one change. This is the first step in the berglearning.com system for reading. Yeah. It's actually in 109 languages now. We're trying to help people. Yeah.
So the website, www.berglearning.com, is where people can go.
Yeah. Like my name. Yes.
Yeah. BERG learning.com.
And there's some free lessons. There's some free lessons there as well. So to help people get started, you want them to be comfortable when they make a purchase, that they know they made the right decision.
That's interesting. Why do you start with? Why do you use a finger to trace the words? What's the reason for that?
Keeps the eye engaged. A lot of people get distracted very easily, and they start wandering around the page. It keeps you continually looking at something new, and you see something interesting. Oh, that was it. So you read it again. It hasn't changed. You're losing time. We don't have a lot of time. The time we have to read, we should be learning what we don't know and need to know, not learning what we know already, wasting time on that, which is comfortable because it's a safe zone, or reading something you just read that you understood already. That's wasting time. The eye keeps going, and that's why you use the hand. Now, comprehension is much more important. Most people don't want to speed read. They want to speed learn. I personally am more interested in learning than reading. To me, reading is a screwdriver. I'm more interested in what I can do with it than the screwdriver itself.
Yeah.
So the key to comprehension is called schema. I have kind of a funny story. I was with Dick Cavett when MSNBC first launched. He was a very famous talk show host.
One of the best interviewers, I think, of all time. He interviewed all the greats.
I'm glad you know that. You're a little young. Not everyone in your generation knows who he is.
Oh, yeah. Yes. No, I'm up on him.
Yeah, he's probably one of the greatest interviewers of all time. Absolutely. But I got to be friends with him. So we hung out after the interview, and he told me a funny story about Woody Allen. He said Woody Allen took Evelyn Woods, which is the big reading course, and he learned to read fast, and he read War and Peace in 5 minutes, which is enormous. He said, "That's amazing, Woody. What do you remember?" And Woody said, "It's about the Russian Revolution. That's all I remember." And that was speed reading. It was a biology book. I think it was about calculus. You didn't learn calculus. You didn't learn biology. It was too fast. You couldn't learn anything. So what was happening is when people slowed down to learn, they lost their speed because all they did was the hand motions. And it was conditions. You had to always go fast, or you could never go fast. And sometimes you slow down, and then you lost your speed. So I fixed it. The guy who owned Evelyn Woods was Maurice Thompson Jr., and he paid me to teach his son my system, and said, "You've gone past speed reading, speed learning, and I'll show you how. One of the key elements is schema." So I'm going to read a passage, no schema, and watch how confusing it is. This is an easy thing to do. If possible, you could do it at home, but you could always go someplace else if it's necessary. Beware of overdoing it. This is a major mistake. It may cost you quite a bit of money. I have no idea what I'm talking about because no schema. I'm going to read it again with a title, one word, just one word that has schema, and instantly it all makes sense. You ready?
Okay.
Laundry. This is an easy thing to do. If possible, you could do it at home, but you could always go someplace else if it's necessary. Beware of overdoing it. This is a major mistake. It may cost you quite a bit of money. Confusion's gone.
Oh,
So by
wow.
teaching people where the psychological clues are, their brain uses to make sense out of text. You can read very technical books and music and art and law and medicine and understand it better, 2 to 4 times faster, because you're not just going quicker. Your brain knows what to look for and where to find it to make meaning out of it. And that's a big game changer. Now you can slow down and learn a new word or a name or a formula or a chord and not lose your speed, which in the past, it was all or nothing. So that was a very big change in how the system worked. And now you can actually learn and not just go quickly through a book.
So is schema essentially a way to anchor to the content you're going over?
It's the Rosetta Stone of meaning. So when you're trying to decode, what does this mean? How do I use this? What's the significance? Schema plays a very major role in making something make sense to your brain, regardless of the subject. So by learning where it is and how to use it more effectively, you can increase your speed dramatically and improve your understanding at the same time.
So with that laundry example, then, for example, that made that whole sentence you repeated clear in my mind. To sort of, it all made sense to me. Sometimes it seems to be hard to attach meaning to a piece of content. Are you acting creatively to create the Rosetta Stone of learning, the anchors, the schema? Is there a lot of creativity that's going into this? And if so, doesn't that also take a lot of mental bandwidth?
I can actually teach you how it's done. It'll take a little time, but I think in this case, it's worth it because of the theme of the podcast, how to be a genius, a creative genius, how to see things no one sees. A good example, at the turn of 1990, around then, cell phones looked like Captain Kirk's communicator. If you remember, they flipped open. That was what a cell phone looked like. Then Steve Jobs looked and said, we can make the screen a monitor and throw a computer chip in there. And not only will it be a phone, but it'll run programs. And he called it an iPhone. How did that work out? I'm going to say he made some money. Then he looked at it and said, that can make it as big as a piece of paper, 8.5 by 11. Call it an iPad. It's the same thing, bigger. How did that work out? That's a genius. He saw what everyone else saw differently. And that's what creative people do. So let me give you some clues on how that works in the unconscious brain. The unconscious brain doesn't talk. It gives us feelings. That's why you say, I'm inspired. You have a feeling, and you're trying to work that feeling into your work, whether it's a painting or a story or a book or a song. You're trying to work with it so you can make it something tangible. Well, the unconscious brain doesn't use words, but it gets emotion. So there's an old game we played as children called Hot and Cold. Do you remember one kid went out of the room, they hit something in the room, and then if he got closer, it was warm or hot. If he went further, it was cold or cold. Yeah. So it was binary, hot, cold. We can use binary emotions to communicate with our unconscious. I'm going to show you how it's done. So I read fast. I can read 10 books in 3 hours, but most people could read a book an hour with the system. We had an 84-year-old read 3 books in 3 hours. So it's really very doable. It doesn't sound like it, but it's been proven. So you're reading information that has the data in it you need, but you don't know how to connect the dots. So you ask questions that have emotional meaning to you. For example, said, Howard, do I need a root canal? He said, Will, you need 10 root canals. How would you feel, good or bad?
Bad,
unless you're the dentist, which case you feel really bad. He said, Howard, did I win the lottery? He said, Will, you won $60 million. How would you feel, good or bad?
I'd feel great. Good.
Perfect. So now ask yourself questions. How should you feel if it's a yes, good or bad? And then how do you feel? How do you feel, good or bad? Based on that feeling, you can get a yes or a no based on how you feel. And if you ask enough yes and no questions in a row, you get some pretty good detail. Now, initially, you have to do that consciously. But here's the beauty of the brain. When you use a neural pathway repeatedly, like learning to play guitar, you can see.
Yeah, I saw that. I love it. I love the wood on it too. We'll talk about that later for sure.
So you have to learn where the C chord is. If you have to think, where's the C chord? Where's the D chord? You're not playing guitar. You're learning the alphabet, the A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's about it. But where is it? So you have to learn where your fingers go. If you have to think about it, you're not going to play very well. So what happens over time is those pathways we use repeatedly myelinate, which means they coat, like a coating on a wire that insulates it. So what we're doing here is we're connecting the midbrain, the limbic system, where all the feelings are, to the forebrain, where all the insights and creativity are. And so we're learning to communicate this instinctive part of our mind with a brilliant part of our mind. And as we do it over and over, it myelinates. You don't have to think about it anymore. Like you don't have to think about the C and the D chord. It's automatic. And you start being more and more creative. And if you'd like, I could take this up a notch.
Yes, please.
So there's actually 3 levels of learning. This is psychology. I took this in graduate school. Literal, implied, and inferential. Literal is what you see, the words on the page. And often when you're learning in any program, it's like, learn this. Why? Because I said so. And you read the words, you're like, I don't know. I don't like it. It's boring. It's just words. The second level of learning is implied. That's when your brain already knows something. It's presumed to know something. Like if I said the man drank a glass of water, we'll go, wait a minute. What's a man? What's water? What's drinking? You have to know those things or the sentence doesn't have any meaning. And I'm presuming you know what a man and water and drinking are. So I'm not going to explain it to you. That's implied. The high level, this is where genius is inferential. When you can connect the dots and see things like Jobs did. You don't see the phone, you see a little computer. So let me show you an example of this that will resonate more with autistic people. I want you to visualize a giant circle with a dot in the middle. So what are you seeing right now? Literally, just what did I describe? What are you seeing?
A giant circle with a dot in the middle.
Great. How interesting is that, honestly?
Not really interesting.
That's literal. It's just what you see.
Yeah.
Now it's on the implied level. It's more than just a picture. It's a symbol. And astronomy and originally astrology, they were one system at one time. Not now, obviously, but back in medieval times, even Isaac Newton studied astrology. It was common for astronomers and astrologers to be the same thing. So that's the symbol of the sun. It's a circle with the dot in the middle. It looks like the sun. Okay. That's a little more interesting that it's a circle with a dot. Not a whole lot more, but it's a step up. Now, the level I'm going to is this picture is one of the meanings of life. Is it a circle with a dot in the middle? I don't see the meaning of life. And this is the way like a Buddha would have taught back in the day. They did a lot of symbolic. They'd show a flower and say, this is life. It's a flower. What is it? So you got a circle with a dot. So the dot is it's a point, and a point is infinitesimally small. Wherever you look, there's an infinite number of points. They're invisible. You can't see a single one. So it symbolizes spirit or God, something that's omnipresent everywhere you look, and you can't see it anywhere. So the symbol of spirit is a point. The circle is a symbol. Inside the circle is self, you. Everything out here isn't you. So the symbol is saying at the center of all things is spirit. So we look different, we act different, we talk different, but we're one thing. We're both spirit. We speak to each other, and it's spirit to spirit. So even though we all look different, we act different, it's a singularity. At the center, everything is the same. Brotherhood isn't a euphemism. It's the human race. You're a cell in the human race. You're part of the body called humanity. And when anyone suffers, we all suffer because we're all connected through that body called humanity. That a little more interesting? It's a circle with a point in the middle.
Yeah. Oh my God. It went from so profound from something so it's amazing how it transformed into something so profound.
That's what genius does. I'll give you an example of an application. Would solve 3 unsolvable problems at the same time. How to get unlimited green energy while getting more money to coal, oil, and gas. How to create hundreds of thousands of jobs and eliminate the national debt. We'll do that in 90 seconds.
It's about time.
Okay?
Jeez.
I'm just showing an application to being able to think out of the box.
Okay, for sure. Yeah.
So how you make electricity? You spin a wire in a coil wire in a magnet, or you spin a magnet around a coil of wire. That's most of the electricity is made. The spinning is water, if there's water like Niagara Falls, but there isn't always water. The alternative is steam. That's where oil, coal, and gas come in, and nuclear fuel. They make hot causes steam. Steam moves the turbine, spins the wire, or spins the magnet, depending on the setup.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So in Iceland, it's a volcano, and it's got lots of water, and it has magma near the surface because it's a volcano, and they use the heat from the magma, which is green energy, to boil the water.
Wow.
So they don't have to use oil or gases or coal. It's boiled from the magma, which is great if you're a volcano. Well, America isn't a volcano, but it is. And Yellowstone Park is one of the largest volcanic supervolcanoes in the world, about 300 miles of magma. So you get the oil, gas, and coal companies to use geothermal plants. They put the money up. So instead of it taking money from them, it becomes the next big money generator. It's got to be easier to find magma in Yellowstone than a new oil field. And there's tons of water. It's tons of water there. So they have to build infrastructure. That's where all these people go back to work from oil, coal, and gas. And people out of work can be trained to build the coils and the wires and the buildings and all the infrastructure. And where is it? It's on federal land. So they charge a usage tax for using federal land and put it towards the deficit. And as more and more kilowatts are generated out of that area, more and more money goes to pay off the debt. And by the way, it isn't just Yellowstone. There's another big magma field in California in an area where they do skiing. And there's another one in the Northeast in the Vermont area. There's actually, it's not a volcano yet, but they've detected a huge amount of magma below the surface that's percolating up. So it's not just one area where they could do this. So could that work? Absolutely. But that's exactly what creativity is about. It's seeing what everyone else sees differently. I'll give you a project I did musically.
Sure.
Okay. You know the song, Jesus Christ Superstar, Why Didn't You Come Now? It would have been better. You could have spread your net. So I said, that's an interesting theme. So I took 400 songs, Beatles, Moody Blues, Rolling Stones, and I made a story that's 16 hours long that he comes back. I'll give an example. You have Simon and Garfunkel's Silent Night, where they have that background with all the people getting killed and the nurses, and it just makes it into a macabre kind of Silent Night. And the next song is Melanie, Look What They've Done to My Song, Ma. And the next song is Paul Simon, Mother and Child Reunion. And it goes all the way through. And finally, George Harrison, I'm Living in the Material World, he's reborn. And it goes through this for 16 hours. So from pre-birth to birth, to not knowing who he is, to manic depression, Jimi Hendrix, to becoming self-conscious, doing his teachings and going through the whole story. Took me 3 years to write it, and I used about 400 songs that were already made. The biggest challenge is because it's not my music. The gestalt pattern is mine, but I didn't write any of the songs, so I can't sell other people's music as my own, because what I'm trying to do is make a playlist, and hopefully some radio stations might play it, and then they would pay the royalty for playing the song on the station. So I'm not breaking any laws, and the pattern would be mine.
That's interesting. Yeah, the thought pattern.
Took me 3 years.
That's amazing. And it could just indefinitely go on a loop, like a rotating planet.
And that's an example. That's a whole new form of music. I don't think anyone's ever done a 16-hour rock opera with 400 songs other people made, and the Gestalt pattern tells the story.
And you could live in that, right? You could live in that 16-hour world, essentially, which is really,
that's
really
exactly
interesting.
Right. And you know why? Because music is emotion. Music creates feeling. You could go to sleep with a lullaby or go to war with a battle cry. So I use music because it affects emotions directly. It creates states, makes you sad, makes you happy, makes you nervous, makes you calm. And then the lyrics are another layer. But just the keys, bluesy keys are kind of depressing and woeful, and major keys are more sparkly and happy. Yeah. And by using the keys and using the tempos and using the alliteration of the music on another layer, it creates states. So you experience the story instead of hear it. You become part of the story. Like Star Wars, you forget you're watching a movie, you're in the movie. And if you do this right, you become part of the story, and it's your story. And you know what it feels like to become enlightened.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah, music has that power you really do become part of the music through either singing along or moving your body. But I never thought about that. You do kind of merge with the music, so it kind of sweeps you up till you're kind of swept up by it. It just hit me differently the way you said it just now. But I want to just reiterate for people listening to definitely check out www.berglearning.com. I guess it's Howard Berg, so BERG learning.com. You can learn all these awesome techniques. But Howard, I wanted to go back for a second. When you were talking about geothermal energy sources, that was a really creative solution, it sounded like, to the energy crisis that we're facing. When a thought like that hits you and you come up with these solutions, and also knowing that you have a lot of influence, a lot of different people in a lot of high positions. What do you do with a thought like that? Do you start talking to people about it, wanting to execute on it, or is it for someone else to kind of be inspired by? Or what do you do? I
talk about it on dozens of podcasts. So maybe someone listening will say, "Hey, I can use that," which is fine. It'll help everyone. Yeah. It's really hard. Politicians are kind of hard to get them to do anything. They can't even do things that are in their best interests anymore. They can't even save the deficit. I mean, when we think about of all the things you can do, letting the country go bankrupt doesn't seem like the best idea for anybody. And they're arguing over that money they already spent. They're not asking them to spend more. They're asking them to pay the bills they already, and that's a debate. So how are you going to get them to do something major? It's really hard. So I'm more interested in talking to people. If enough people say, hey, that's a good idea, and maybe they'll start letting their legislators know there's a way you can do this. Mm-hmm. They're only interested in one thing, getting votes and getting money. That's all they care about, really. And the rest of it's just for show. I mean, otherwise, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in, because we're in a pretty bad spot right now. That's why I do this. I'm a grandparent. I'm looking at our kids, and we're giving them global warming, exploding deficits. The virus is the start. It's not the end of viruses. There'll be more. Some of them could be much worse. They may not be a shot next time. Yeah. They don't always have shots that can work. And what are we doing to make them smart enough to fix the problems we're giving them? Nothing. So I feel like that's my karma. I'm supposed to help make people aware. There is a way to learn and understand and do more in less time that's been proven to work. They can help their kids do better in school, get higher grades, not live with them till they're 40. More children live with their parents till 40 than are married now. They can't afford to leave with their college loans. Yeah. You have parents trying to make a living, and there's going to be 30% of all jobs gone in the next 5 to 10 years. Every truck driver in the country should be worried, because computers are going to ride the trucks. Why would they want a man? A machine doesn't need to sleep, doesn't take coffee breaks, doesn't go to the bathroom, doesn't get paid.
Elon Musk's Tesla company, I was just seeing their trucks today. I was just watching about their trucks on YouTube. And a couple of weeks ago, they have the prototype for like an AI servant that can do a lot of the manual labor. And I think, you're mentioning Steve Jobs. I think Elon is, in my opinion, one of the biggest geniuses out there now, and he's looking towards Mars. And we're talking about all these problems with the world. Do you think that it's time to look outside of the Earth and try to make another planet and try to make life there better? Or what do you think on that? Should we stay here and try to fix these problems? Or is it time to start looking out and trying again?
Both. There's 7 billion people. We can handle more than one thing at a time.
Yeah, yes. Of course.
The future is in space. Okay. Mm-hmm. For every person on Earth to live at the level of an American that we live at now, we'd need 3 times the size of the Earth in terms of raw materials. It's not going to happen. But where did the raw materials come from? The asteroids. That's how the Earth formed. All these different asteroids collided, and one has gold and one over here is aluminum. And that's what you're finding, where those pockets of asteroids are, or where these different elements are. Well, there's tons and tons of asteroids out there, billions. There's one asteroid they said it's like quadrillion, quintillion dollars of gold and silver, and it's unbelievable. It's got more wealth than all of the countries combined times a million, literally. And if they could figure out how to get there and mine it, bring it back in a cost-effective way, which you will eventually. We're like where Columbus was. They have wooden ships with sails. They made it, but those weren't the safest boats. They weren't metal ships that could handle a major storm. So we're at that stage where Columbus is. Our space travel now is sailboats. We're sending sailboats out there, but it has to start somewhere. But over time, it'll evolve into more sophisticated and more efficient ways of doing it. In which time we should be on Mars, we should be on the moon, we should be mining the asteroids. For one thing, the population here is destroying the planet. We can't keep growing at this rate and not destroy every ecosystem, which is one of the biggest problems. Global warming is a symptom of exploding population growth. They're knocking the forests down to build farms. They're killing off the fish because they need fish to eat. So it's really tied in. So if we could get more and more people on Mars and on Moon and on asteroids, and eventually go like Star Trek, it could be our destiny to go out there. They say they're intelligent life. We could be the intelligent life that goes out there like we're looking for, and be the ones that become the intelligent life of the universe. It took a lot of accidents for us to be where we are. We needed to have oxygen. We needed to have the dinosaurs die out. Was a lot of things that had to happen in the right order. And for that to happen again somewhere else, it's going to take a lot of coincidences to match what happened here. But what happened here, and if we're smart enough, we could be the seed of intelligent life going out throughout the galaxy, throughout the universe, but not in one day. We're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of years in the future. But look who we were 150 years ago. They didn't have electricity.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't have cars. They didn't have planes. Well, you went by horse. Maybe you had a train. The biggest breakthrough was the telegraph. So figure in 150 years where we went from the telegraph to where we are now. Imagine 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 years from now, what we could be doing to get out there. So yeah, we should be doing, and we should also be looking at our own problems here at the same time. We have enough bandwidth to do both.
Definitely. And it seems strange that we can have solutions to problems and kind of evolve technology, but what seems to really hamper everything is like human dynamics, or like the neuroticism in people. And I just feel like you would know this because you just read a lot. I feel like you're really studied about like the human condition, would be my guess. I mean, that you read so much. Do you think if we were to, go into space and travel, do you think we could also learn to become maybe less neurotic as people, or are humans almost inherently flawed, almost maybe even sabotage themselves on some level? I don't know if that's oblique.
It's a great question. I actually know the answer.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, great.
so I read a lot. I've read about 30,000 books. So you kind of learn a few things after a while that, if nothing else, you see connections that nobody made the connection because they didn't read that book.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that. I'm going to start with something on a tangent, and then we'll work our way to that. Magic is real. Everywhere you say, where's magic? Look around you. Everything you see that isn't part of nature, that's not a plant or a mineral or an animal, was an idea. The shirt you're wearing, someone thought of it. The microphone, the desk, the house you're in. It all starts off as a thought. That's what art is. You start off with an idea, and then the idea becomes something, becomes real. Something invisible that's in your head turns into reality. That's magic. Mm-hmm. And what magic is about finding the plan, the methods to take those ideas and make them real. One of the things that's working against humans right now is called an egregore. Most people haven't heard of that, but it's a thought form. I'll give an example. In the 60s, we were willing to destroy the world for capitalism and democracy, a thought. And Russia was willing to destroy the world for communism, a thought. Christians have died by the millions over the ages in different wars for a thought, the concept of Christianity, and so in other religions too. Thoughts are very powerful. People create thoughts, but then thoughts control people. Mm-hmm. You want to see that? Look at what happened on January 6th. It's a good example. Any one of those people on a normal day by themselves, not in that crowd, would not have broken a window and try to go in there and do what they did. No one person would have done that ever. Mm-hmm. It's inconceivable. But the collective thought, the power of the group mind, everyone thinking that at the same time, feels right. They're doing it. I'm part of this. I should be doing it too. The gangs, they do certain violent acts that the individuals by themselves, they probably wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. But in the context of the group, it's what the group does. So they do what the group does to be part of the tribe. It's a tribalism. It's a collective thought. The way out is to train people on how to control their minds and their thinking and their thoughts. There's a saying in the Gita, man is an animal that sometimes thinks. What it's saying is we are dominated right now by our emotions more than we think. If you think of how much of your day is spent, why did this happen to me? Or this was great. We're going through a lot of emotional changes throughout the day, and it guides our thinking and our temperament, our state of mind. And so by learning how to control the mind, how to control the thinking, how to control the emotions, we can change it. But you have to consciously want to do that. It isn't something that comes naturally. When I got out of college, I became a yogi. I lived in an ashram on weekends, and I studied a lot of metaphysics, which covered a different aspect. I learned about neurons and neural pathways and genetics. And then I learned about consciousness. And I said, if you looked at the brain of a Michelangelo, would you see David? If you looked at the brain of a Da Vinci, would you see the Mona Lisa? No, you could never see that complex art in the neural patterns of their mind. Consciousness is greater than the neurons in our brain. It's a bigger level. And there are ways of controlling thought and consciousness. In fact, I could demonstrate one if you'd like.
Yes, please, yeah.
I'm going to control your mind right now. I'm telling you I'm going to do it. Everyone listening, I'm telling you I'm going to control your mind. No matter how hard you try not to let me control your mind, as long as you hear what I'm saying, I will be controlling your mind. Are you ready?
God, I'm ready.
Don't think of Mickey Mouse eating pizza.
Okay, yeah.
What did you just think?
I thought of it. I
That's an example.
I was worried you were going to make me bark like a dog.
Oh God, no! I'm not going to. I could, but I wouldn't. I know how to do that, but I wouldn't do that. I don't.
If you want to, feel free.
No, there's an ecology to this.
Yeah,
I'm not on the dark side. I'm on the white side. I'm interested in helping people, not hurting them. What I'm demonstrating is how language is so powerful that words can make you feel compelled to do something that normally you wouldn't be doing. And if you look at a lot of the negative things going on politically and in the world, those are thoughts. Those are ideas that have taken over tribes. And the idea is now using them like a virus, a virus. It's taking control of their lives and their actions. We can learn to control our thoughts and stop reacting. When you learn, that's the first step in being a master. When you stop reacting, you start being. I'll give you an example of how let's say I said, Will, you're an ugly tree. I don't think that would hurt your feelings because one, you're not ugly, and two, you're not a tree. So, yeah, but you're not gonna. If you said, how would you look fat? Well, I think I do. That might hurt my feelings because I believe it, because it's true. Yeah. So, truth sets you free, and when people believe what people tell them without thinking it through, they become like think of Mickey Mouse having a pizza. The same thing's going on everywhere you look. They're thinking those patterns. By learning how to think for yourself, I'm not telling them what to think, but learning how to be free from being imprisoned by other people's thoughts and ideas, but thinking for yourself, that could break the pattern. And it's possible to do that, but it's difficult because people need to want to break free. And part of the problem is this is so much a part of who they are and their fundamental sense of self and identity. It won't come easily. It'll take a lot of who people respect and listen to doing it to make the change, because people follow leaders. So look at Jesus. There's a good model. He had 12 disciples, but there's over 1 billion people who follow him now. So I'd say those 12 people did a good marketing message. And I mean that literally, because they took a concept and they brought it out and people bought it. They bought the concept. That's a good example of you don't need a lot of people to make a major change. You need the right people. The right people taking a thought, an idea, a philosophy, a principle, a religion, and putting it out there that know what they're doing and do it well can influence tremendously. Billions of people now follow that teaching from one person. But it wasn't just him, it was the people around him. And that's a good model for anything. If you want to make a change on that scale, you need to influence the right people who can influence the masses. And that's how it works. And it's not a fast thing. It didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
But it can happen. It can happen.
And for you, would you say reading is something that helped you start to think for yourself, like getting different perspectives from, experts? It sounds also like spiritual, perhaps, maybe spiritual texts. Do those resonate with you the most? Yes. Well, there's two things that change you: the people you communicate and deal with, and the books you read. Yeah. That's how you learn. We learn from the people around us and the books. The books are the people around us that put their thoughts into paper. Originally, writing was considered a sacred thing. Only priests and noble people could read. It was solid thought. Somebody's idea is on paper. It became a real thing. The invisible ideas in the mind were now on paper and live. They had a life. In the Jewish religion, when a Bible is no longer usable, it's buried in a coffin along with a dead person. It's believed to be a living thing. It's the living word of God. There's a good example. So in a very real sense, we've lost some of the magic of what reading really is. It's thoughts. It's thoughts frozen in time and space in symbols on a piece of paper or on an electronic reader. But it's a very profound thing that we're looking at. And as we're reading Plato's still alive. His ideas still resonate. Aristotle, thousands of years ago, they lived. And yet we know who they are, and we know what they did, and we understand their beliefs and their values and their principles, because their ideas live on in writing. What a power. And that's what art is about. It's embodying ideas. And then they go on and on and on. David, Mona Lisa,
great literature, paintings, music. They're timeless. They embody something. They have a spirit of their own, and they influence people.
That's beautiful. As you're talking, I'm thinking about the way I hear you talk about Aristotle and Plato and Da Vinci and all these people. I think most people in their life won't read all these great masters or won't read about these people reporting these great masters, but you have. Do you feel that you just have a deeper experience of life because you're connected to the thought patterns of these geniuses? And essentially, I don't say that to just pump your tires or to
Oh, no, no, no.
Yeah,
it's an influence. Yeah, absolutely. When I was younger, I wasn't like other kids would like watch ball games and football and baseball. My idols were Da Vinci, Benjamin Franklin, Albert Einstein, Newton. These are the people these were my baseball cards. You know, with other kids looking at Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris, I was looking at what Da Vinci did and what Plato did. I was amazed at the genius of these people and their creativity and how impactful they've been on our world and how they've changed our perception of reality in so many profound and meaningful ways. Someone else throws a ball. I'm not knocking the gift. It's a skill. It's a gift, but it doesn't change society. It doesn't move us forward as a culture. Look what Einstein's theory did, or Newton's laws of motion did for the betterment of humanity compared to, say, the Super Bowl. It's fun, it's entertaining, but it's over. And then it's another one. But what they did is forever. Mm-hmm. And those were my role models growing up. Yeah. Those are the people's ideas I most was influenced by. So remember I said I read a lot. That's what I was reading. When I was 7, I read mythology. And I studied comparative religion when I was 7. When I was 8, I was reading the theory of relativity. I got interested in that. So I was a little different as a kid because when other kids went out to play, I found if I went out, I got beaten. I had knives to my throat. I was beaten with bats.
Wow.
A book, the worst thing, you got a paper cut. I could live with that. So and in a way, I think what made my childhood so awful made me a better person.
Yeah.
And I also think it made me more empathetic because I suffered terribly. I mean, I got to tell you, it was easy. It wasn't. It's very depressing and very painful. But I know what that feels like, and I got rid of it. And I see lots of people today that are in that state that I was in when I was a child. And I say I was fortunate. I found a way out of that dark place to be able to do something meaningful. And you have a responsibility to lead others out that don't know how.
That's
and I
beautiful.
can show you one way to do it if you'd like.
Yes, please.
The unconscious brain doesn't understand negatives. Like when I said, don't think of Mickey Mouse. Anytime you say don't, you do. That's how the brain works.
Yeah.
Okay. When you tell yourself, I'm not going to be depressed, I'm not going to be anxious, it makes it more powerful. You're focusing on it. There is no anxiety or depression in the world. There's nothing here that's depressed. It's in your ear. It's in between your ears. Mm-hmm. If you're thinking about it, it exists. And if you try to stop it, it gets more powerful because you're thinking about it. The way to eliminate a negative state or emotion is not to try to stop it. Doesn't work. Think of the opposite. I'm peaceful. I'm tranquil. I'm happy. Even though you're not, you focus on that state and experiencing it. What happens is the state that's negative doesn't have focus. It atrophies. It never existed. It only existed when you were conscious of it. As your consciousness shifts from that to the state that you want, creating that other state takes the power away from the other state because it doesn't exist if you don't think about it. And the other state that does exist is the one you're thinking about. And over time, this just withers away like a weed that was growing in your brain. And the flower you've been planting, the opposite thought, the opposite state blossoms. And little by little, you come out of that darkness into the light, and you can have a very positive life experience. But it has to come from you. No one can do it for you. It's a war you have to fight inside your own mind between the negative states and the states that you really want. And you can change it by changing your thinking and your focus. And that's something artists need to do. A lot of artists suffer. It's not unusual. They have a lot of pain because they're so brilliant and they're trying to output that brilliance, and it's challenging. But this is a way to still be brilliant and creative without the pain.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that idea of creating the state you want. And then it sounds like you're saying not resisting, let's say, the anxiety. Not trying to push it away.
Don't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
You do affirmations like, I'm peaceful, I'm tranquil, I'm happy, I'm blissful. And you think it and you see it and you believe it and you think it and you see it and you believe it and you think it and you see it. Because what you're really doing when you're anxious is the opposite. I'm sad, I'm unhappy, I'm nervous. I'm sad, I'm unhappy, I'm nervous. And what happens? You're sad, you're unhappy, you're nervous. You're doing it anyway. All you're doing is creating the opposite. If you can make yourself miserable, you can make yourself happy too. It's the same process in reverse.
And it's so bizarre that our brains have the ability to do this, and yet it seems like almost like the natural state for many of us is to go to the negative.
It's easier. Rocks roll downhill.
That's a great way of saying it.
Glasses break, they don't unbreak. It takes willpower and willingness and focus and action to move out of that dark place. It doesn't happen by magic. You have to take an action and move yourself there and focus on it and concentrate on it and create it. And then it happens. But that's work. It's a lot easier to just feel sorry for yourself and be depressed. It doesn't take a whole lot of work, but it's very debilitating and ultimately can lead to some tragic outcomes. So given the two choices, which one would you pick? There's a road out of the darkness into the light. Takes a little effort, but stay where it's easy and be miserable the rest of your life. Those are your options.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that need to hear that lesson. That's a beautiful lesson. And just for people listening, I want to remind you again, if you like what you're hearing, this is Howard Berg. He is the world's fastest reader among many things. And you can learn his learning techniques and his techniques to unleash creativity at berglearning.com. So that's BERG learning.com.
Would you like a technique?
I would love a technique. This is like Halloween coming early. All these treats for everyone listening.
Let's learn how to speed memorize, because I think that's one of the things that artistic. I know when you're learning guitar, there's so many chords, and then there's the minor and the major and the sevenths and the minor sevenths, and then it starts getting even more hairy as you get into the more jazzy kind of chords. It's not so simple after a while. You're like, where do you put your fingers? So let me show you how to memorize really fast. One technique that's very powerful. Okay, 10 things to remember. I won't show you how. We'll see how poorly you do. It'll be bad. Then I'll show you how, and it'll be an effortless action. You ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
And you want to remember pole, shoes, tricycle, car, glove, gun, dice, skate, cat, and bowling pins. I'm going to bet you don't know all of them right now, backwards and forwards, effortlessly.
Oh, man, I'm going to be horrible at this.
No, this is super easy. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't. You can teach this to 3-year-olds, literally 3-year-olds. 3-year-olds can do this.
Okay, well, I feel 2 right now. I'll tell you that.
Well, I'll make this easy. There's 2 caveats. One, you only remember 10% of what you read, 90% of what you say and do. I'm going to ask you to say and do when we're doing this. This isn't a drill. It's a tool. You will use it. And all of our artistic friends can use it too. Second, the Greeks discovered a shortcut for learning a list. Take a list you know. It's hanging in your memory. And what do you do with hangers? You hang things on them. I'm going to bet you and all of our audience can count to 10. I feel confident we can do that.
I can do that.
We're going to use 10 numbers that you know that are in there to learn the list super fast. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
The number 1 looks like a pole, like a flagpole.
Yep.
So when I say 1, you say pole. 1.
Pole.
Good. 2 is shoes. That's how many shoes you wear. What's 2?
Shoes.
What was 1?
Pole.
3 is a tricycle. 3 wheels on a tricycle. What's 3?
Tricycle.
What's 2?
Shoes.
What's 1?
Pole.
Perfect. 4 is a car. 4 tires on a car. What's 4?
Car.
2.
Shoes.
1.
Pole.
3.
Tricycle.
Getting easier, isn't it? 5 is a glove. How many fingers are in a glove?
5, hopefully.
That's 5.
Glove.
3.
Tricycle.
1.
Pole.
Perfect. 6 gun. They love them in Texas. Cowboys. 6 shooters.
Oh,
6 gun.
yeah. Okay.
What's 6?
Gun.
4.
Car.
2.
Shoes.
7's lucky in dice on the first throw. 7 dice. 7.
Oh, dice. Okay, lucky. Yeah,
5
lucky
is
7.
There you
Glove.
go. 5 glove. 3.
Tricycle.
1.
Pole.
You're almost done. Rhymes work. Say 8 skate.
Skate.
8 skate.
8 skate.
What's 8?
Skate.
What do they love in Texas? 6.
6 shooter. Gun.
4.
Car.
2.
Shoes.
9. How many lives does a cat have?
9.
9. What's 9?
Cat.
7's lucky in what game?
Lucky 7. Dice.
5.
Glove.
3.
Tricycle.
1.
Pole.
Last one. 10. How many bowling pins in a lane?
10.
10 bowling pins. What's 10?
Pins or
That's
bowling?
right.
Okay.
Bowling pins. 1.
Pole.
2.
Shoes.
3.
Tricycle.
4.
Car.
5.
Glove.
6. Texas.
Gun.
7's lucky in.
Dice.
8 rhymes with.
Skate.
9 is a.
Cat.
What was 10?
Bowling. Pins.
There you go. You memorized it. Now, here's how you use it. Here's how you use it. This is a way to speed learn numbers. And there's a lot of numbers in music and art. And knowing numbers can be very tricky. So imagine you're in a hotel and your room is 314. By the time you get to the lobby, you forgot what room you were in. Here's how you remember numbers. 3 is a tricycle. 1 is a pole. 4 is a car. Make an amusing movie. A tricycle hits a pole on a car. Picture that. A tricycle hits a pole on a car. Tricycle, what number?
3.
Hits a pole.
1.
On a car.
4.
That's your hotel room, 314. Tricycle, pole, car. Now, the 0 is the 10 bowling pins because you need a 0 to 9. Now, 314 is also pi in geometry. So I use it with young people for math and science and history. In business, you can use it for learning numbers and percentages, due dates, phone numbers, any number. You can string the numbers together as a series of pictures, make a movie, play the movie, you got the number.
Wow. Dude, that that blows my mind. I know that's like the applications of that could be like a lifelong practice for me or anyone listening just from hearing that.
Anyone in art can use this because art's about numbers too. There's math in art and you know that.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Howard, I won't take any more of your time, but I want to thank you. And I know everyone listening is probably thrilled and hopefully applying some of the things you've said. Hopefully they'll check out your website, berglearning.com.
Free lessons. One more thing. Yeah, we have some free lessons. And if they need help, we help them. And if they can't help, I do. I want to know if someone's having a problem so I can fix it so they get what they paid for. I'm a Rotarian president. That's the flag back there. Nice. And I also want to know so I can make sure the next time no one has that problem again. And over 35 years, I've made changes, so there's not many problems left. People get it. I made it easy. And it's something they're going to get tremendous. It'll help their kids finish school, get higher grades. It'll help them make more money and be more creative.
Yeah.
As a writing program, there's a memory program. I wrote a book in 5 hours. It went #1 on Amazon the next day. It's like memory.
Wow.
It's very easy to do.
What book was that? What book was that?
A speed reading book.
Reading
book. And it's really easy to do. I mean, that like the memory looked hard, but it wasn't. And then, of course, as you're getting older, it keeps your brain fit. I'm 72. But if you keep using your brain, I'm writing programs right now. I'm creating. I'm constantly doing. If you want to be old, you're old. You want to keep doing, you do. And there's no excuse that an 84-year-old read 3 books in 3 hours the day after I taught her. So it's not like I'm 40 years old. No, that's nothing. I had a 92-year-old go 100% faster in 4 hours. So it's not your age. It's your desire to be a better person and be more creative and reach your full potential. And it's not going to come through magic. It's going to come from learning the magic of the mind and how to move your thoughts through your mind and make the things you dream of doing reality. That's magic. And that's what learning does.
Wow. Howard, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
This is great.